Okay, guys, I wanted to talk about this case I found. I started looking this up about negligent homicide nurses' medication errors. So let's go. We're going to have to go back a little ways. There was a case. This article's from 1998. I believe the actual event happened in somewhere in 95 or 96. I wasn't able to pull the whole article. There's a article, but I don't have access. These articles, journal articles, can be very pricey. But I did find another article on PSNet about this. So, three nurses were indicted in a case. Okay, one nurse who actually did not accept the guilty plea prior to trial was acquitted. The two other nurses were just so scared, they were like, great, we'll take deferred guilty plea prior to the trial, because they were afraid that a jury would render a single verdict for all three of them. And the two nurses, and bless them, because they saw that they were more responsible than the third nurse, and they were trying to do the right thing. And this hospital in Denver, to their credit, and again, this is 1996, when maybe hospitals had some consciousness. I have no idea, but they don't anymore. So, despite community pressure for individual accountability, the hospital where the error occurred provided significant support to all three nurses involved in the medication error. The nurse standing trial remained employed throughout the trial and continues to work in the newborn nursery. One of the other nurses lost her license to practice for 1 year. So, it's not always a case of like you lose your license forever, right? There are options here, right? But they kept her on as a tech or a monitor, I think, or a secretary. Right. In addition, the hospital provided the funds for all the nurses' defense, since typically liability insurance does not cover expenses for criminal charges. Check your liability insurance. With this visible show of support, the hospital has taken a giant step forward to create the environment necessary to make significant changes in medication error prevention. Pharmacists were involved in this as well. This is a very interesting case, right? So, ISMP identified over 50 different failures in the system that allowed this error to occur, go undetected, and ultimately reach a healthy newborn child, causing his death. Had even just one of these failures not occurred, either the accident would not have happened or the error would have been detected and corrected before reaching the infant. Since most of people what do is governed by the system, the causes of errors belong to the system and consequently often lie outside the control of individuals despite their best efforts. This case provides a clear evidence that medication errors are almost never caused by the failure of a single element or the fault of a single practitioner. Rather, a catastrophic event such as this is the result of the combined effects of latent failures in the system and active failures by the individual. Latent failures are weaknesses in the structure of an organization, such as faulty information management or ineffective personnel training, that result from both good and ill-conceived decisions made by upper management. By themselves, latent failures are often subtle and may cause no problems. Their consequences are hidden, becoming apparent only when they occur in proper sequence and combined with active failures of individuals to penetrate or bypass the system's safety nets. Many of the latent active failures that were at the root of this medication error are identified below. Okay, so let's look at this. A case riddled with latent and active failures. Not even close to RaDonda Vaught's case, but again, it's about systems. So if we were allowed to look at the systems at Vanderbilt, and then we look at this Denver case, this article is very good because they had full access, they had full cooperation of the hospital. Unlike Vanderbilt, that is covering up, they have covered up. There's proof of that. They only came forward and really went gunning for RaDonda Vaught after CMS got involved. They had cleared her, although they did fire her. An infant was born to a mother with a prior history of syphilis. Despite having incomplete patient information about the mother's past treatment for syphilis and the current status of both the mother and child, a decision was made to treat the infant for congenital syphilis. This is made by a physician, right? After a phone consultation with infectious disease specialists, other doctors, and the health department, right, the government, the public health department, an order was written for one dose of benzathine penicillin G, 150,000 units IM. Okay, keep in mind, what's the max you can give a child IM? 0.5. Okay, so let's go. We're gonna talk about this. The physicians, the nurses, the pharmacists, unfamiliar with the treatment of congenital syphilis, also had limited knowledge about this non-formulary drug. The pharmacist consulted both the infant's progress notes and the drug facts and comparisons to determine the usual dose of penicillin G benzathine for an infant. However, the pharmacist misread the dose in both sources as 500 units per kilogram, a typical adult dose, instead of 50,000 units per kilogram. Okay? We are human. We all can make mistakes. Consequently, the pharmacist also incorrectly read and prepared the order as 1,500,000 units, a tenfold overdose. Due to a lack of consistent pharmacy procedures for independent double checking, the error was not detected. Since a unit dose system was not used in the nursery, the pharmacy dispensed the tenfold overdose in a plastic bag containing 2 full syringes, right, of Permapen 1.2 million units in 2 mLs each, with green stickers on the plungers to note dosage strength. A pharmacy label on the bag indicated that 2.5 mLs of medication was to be administered IM to equal a dose of 1,500,000 units, which clearly was not the order, right? After glancing at the medication sent from the pharmacy, the infant's primary care nurse expressed concern to her colleagues about the number of injections required to give the infant the medication. Since there is a maximum of 0.5 ml per IM injection allowed in infants, the dose would require 5 injections. As good nurses, they were very anxious to prevent any unnecessary pain to the infant. 2 colleagues, an advanced level staff nursery RN, and a neonatal nurse practitioner decided to investigate the possibility of administering the medication IV instead of IM. Neofax 95 was one of the medication resources relied upon by the 2 nurses to determine if penicillin G benzathine could be administered IV. The Neofax monograph on penicillin G did not specifically mention penicillin G benzathine. Instead, it noted the treatment for congenital syphilis with aqueous crystalline penicillin G, IV slow push, or penicillin G procaine IM. Nowhere in the 2-page monograph was penicillin G benzathine mentioned, and no specific warnings regarding IM use only for penicillin G procaine and penicillin G benzathine were present. Again, this is 96, I believe, right? So it's been a little while, but this is very pertinent because of how the hospital behaved towards the nurses, giving them support. The pharmacy was involved. 50 failures, right? 50 failures. Unfamiliar with the various forms of penicillin G, the nurse practitioner believed that benzathine was a brand name for penicillin G. This misconception was reinforced by the physician's method of writing the drug order. Again, back in the 90s, we didn't have EHRs. Everything was handwritten. Bless everybody who could read a doctor's handwriting. Written with benzathine capitalized and placed on a line above penicillin G rather than it on the same line. In addition, many texts use ambiguous synonyms when referring to various forms of penicillin. For example, penicillin G benzathine is frequently associated with the terms crystalline penicillin and aqueous suspension in texts. Now again, keep in mind the time frame. Believing that aqueous crystalline penicillin G and penicillin G benzathine were the same drug, the nurse practitioner concluded that the drug could be safely administered IV. The nurses knew that, while taught that only clear liquids can be injected IV, certain milky white substances such as IV lipids and other lipid-based drugs can be given IV. Therefore, they did not recognize the problem of giving penicillin G benzathine, a milky white substance, intravenously. Another failure. Hospital policies and practices did not clearly define the prescriptive authority of non-physicians. However, the neonatal nurse practitioner was under the assumption that she was operating under a national protocol which allows neonatal nurse practitioners to plan, direct, implement, and change drug therapy. Consequently, the nurse practitioner made a decision to administer the drug IV. Nurse practitioners, pay attention. This RaDonda Vaught case can really have an impact on you. The primary care nurse, who is not certified to administer IV medications to infants, transferred care of the infant to the advanced level staff nursery RN and the nurse practitioner. While preparing for the drug administration, neither nurse noticed the tenfold overdose, and neither noticed that the syringe was labeled by the manufacturer IM use only. It was on the label. Everybody missed it. The manufacturer's warning is very difficult to see because it is not prominently placed, and the syringe must be rotated 180 degrees away from the drug name to view it. The nurses began to administer the first syringe of Permapen slow IV push. After about 1.8 mL was administered, the infant became unresponsive and resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful. I want you guys to really understand this. This is a case, and I'm going to show you, I can't show you right now, but I want to put this video up on my YouTube. It's going to be about way beyond what I can put up on TikTok. But again, Google this, Denver NICU nurses, penicillin G. These nurses made some big mistakes, but so did the pharmacy, over 50 systematic issues. This is why RaDonda Vaught is not getting a fair trial. This is why Vanderbilt has culpability. They have responsibility. This is a DA looking for re-election who also teaches at Vanderbilt. There are so many problems with this trial going on right now. The third day of deliberations is about to start tomorrow. Make sure you're watching this live. If it's after the fact, the trial's over, we'll see what happens. But pay attention to this, because this is going to have very chilling effect on nurses. And it raises a lot of issues. And we have to look beyond the mistake, the human error that resulted in death, and look at the systems errors that also contributed to the death of this patient in RaDonda Vaught's case, which was part of one was that they were implementing a new AHR. There was no scanner, there was no computer, the medication was not put in the computer yet. So that right there are a lot of issues. Thanks, you guys. Keep posted on this.